Captain Schaff's log stardate 100059.05. Ahoy, ye landlubbers. This week, thar be pirates here. Space ones. Arg! Avast ye mateys, batten down the hatches and prepare ye to listen to our tale of thievery and deception aboard the USS Enterprise that'll shiver the timbers of even the scaliest of scallywags and sea dogs. Arr! All right, ye scallywags, we've pillaged for the shiniest of Trek news, and it's time to give this scuttle the old heave-ho. So, sing it with me, ye hearties. Yo-ho, yo-ho, a space pirate's life for me. Arrgh. Welcome, my fellow Trekkies, to Mission 17 of TREKnological, a Star Trek Shakedown. We are the Star Trek podcast hosted by two Star Trek loving dads who fit Trek into our super busy lives as we're trying to be attentive husbands, trying to be attentive fathers, and also we've got full-time jobs and everything else. Life is busy, but Trek is important, so we make time for it. My name is Captain Schaff, and I am a co-captain here on the USS TREKnological. With me every week, one of my dearest, bestest friends. I want to give a warm welcome to my co-captain, Captain Vactor. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. That captain's log was completely logical, Shaw.
It felt right. Felt right. Yeah, so of course, the captain's log was very pirate themed, which is very fitting because this week's episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, episode 7 of season 1, called The Serene Squall, featured space pirates in the episode, and it was pretty excellent. So we're going to get into that, and we'll talk all about it. We also have a ton of Trek news to throw at you. What we'll probably do, as we typically do, is we'll put it in our show notes, so you'll have a chance to read it at your leisure, whatever you'd like to say. But of course, we thank you for joining us this week, as every week, whether or not you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or even YouTube. Sometimes I forget that we have podcast listeners on YouTube, but that's just because I'm old fashioned. I don't know the newfangled stuff that kids are doing these days with the YouTubes. But definitely we appreciate you taking the time out to give us a listen and give us a follow and things like that. On Spotify, from time to time, and I try to do it every week, we throw out a question to try to get some engagement from our listeners. And sometimes it's a question about what your favorite show is from Star Trek, or maybe your favorite episode or your favorite captain. And I'm not sure yet what this episode's question will be. Maybe it'll manifest itself during our conversation, but no matter what, it'll be something. And we highly encourage you, and we would love if you would just take a moment out. Even if you don't listen to us on Spotify, if you would do us a solid, you can go into the Spotify app or on the website, and if on that page for the episode, you'll be able to find the Q&A section. And it's real easy to leave your thoughts. So we would love that, and we'll, of course, feature answers to those questions if you decide to chime in. So with that in mind, just a brief mention, we are part of a podcast network. So we are the Star Trek centric podcast within that network. Think of it, if you will, as a fleet of podcast vessels. And the flagship of the fleet is Geek So To Speak. So Geek So To Speak is currently on hiatus right now. We finished episode 200 a few weeks back, and so we're on a much-deserved break for the summer. And we may see you in the future, so we'll keep that kind of open-ended on that. But in addition to Geek So To Speak, which is a geek news podcast, we've also got Sandbox Gamers, which is a video game podcast hosted by Wonder Rob, Vactor, and Jeff W. And then we also have We Love Comics, which is a comic book themed podcast featuring the dulcet tones of Captain Vactor, and then also Marcus Seabury and Hunter Camp, and then potentially other guests along the way. Right, Vactor?
That's right. We actually had my buddy Justin Jorfy on to talk Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and hopefully we will be getting a voicemail from Captain Shaw very soon.
That's right. And you know what? I listened to that episode with Jorfy, and it was excellent. So shout out to Jorfy. Thank you for that, because that was a great episode, and I'm a big TMNT fan.
Yeah.
And this is a big week for TMNT with Shredder's Revenge. So
yes.
we'll definitely be playing that tomorrow. Looking forward to it. All right. So with that, Captain Vactor, I think we should set a course for the nearest planet, maximum warp.
Sir, course laid in.
Roll that beautiful bean footage. All right, Captain Vactor, can you please shimmy on down to the transporter room where we will beam down to the planet's surface in search of some tasty Trek news?
Sir, on me way.
To the beam down. All right, let's scan the planet's surface for any sign of Trek news.
I found some Trek news, Captain Choff.
I hope this isn't old for our listeners, because we're having fun, but maybe our listeners are like, just drop it. Just drop it. Oh yeah. So you found some Trek news. Captain Vactor, would you mind giving us a little bit of a summary? What kinds of stories did you find in your pursuit?
Yes, sir. We found the 12 most disturbing moments in Star Trek movies over courtesy of sci-fi.com. So you can check out all the most disturbing Trek moments throughout history. We also have a Star Trek Discovery showrunner explaining why she doesn't feel competition from Strange New Worlds. That was courtesy of Cinema Blend. The surprise star of Star Trek Strange New Worlds is known as Pike's Peak.
That's his hairstyle. It's called Pike's Peak. Oh my god, it cracks me up. And you know what? It deserves to be recognized, because it's a pretty immaculate, gorgeous bit of hair on the top of his head.
I agree 100%. I wish I could grow my hair like that.
I'm working on it. I've got a nice pompadour thing happening right now.
Captain Shaw
it'll get there.
Is the Pike of our show. We also have some Star Trek merch, including a Con Pop figure, a digital library, and much more. Star Trek Picard has LeVar Burton commenting on Geordi's return, teasing some uniforms, and reveals a spoiler. Red alert. Brett Spiner has an idea for how Adam Sung got shot down on Star Trek Picard.
Real quick on that one. This is a little teaser. I don't want to spoil it for the listeners to check out the article, but he wanted to do some things between his character and a relative of Captain Picard. So I'm just going to leave it at that. He was suggesting some things.
And that was courtesy of Red Shirts Always Die, which might be the best URL of all the Star Trek news sites.
I get a lot of news from there, just not because they're exclusive. They're usually not exclusive to it, but they are a great source where everything has been gathered already. So shout out to their site, Red Shirts Always Die, because they really do have a lot of Trek news that they have kind of organized across the web.
Yeah. Rod Roddenberry talked about the importance of inclusion in the Star Trek franchise. We all agree on that front. Star Trek Picard, Stargazer is a new IDW comic series, so definitely check that out. And this week in the Ready Room, Nurse Chapel sees Spock as more than a hot snack. So check that out.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much, Captain Vactor. Transmit those news articles to our show notes for our listeners. Now then, let's continue our weekly mission with our episode discussion. Yarr! Yarr! All right, folks, before I get into it, something I always forget to do is throw up a red alert. We do not want to spoil any episodes of Strange New Worlds or any other Star Trek property, so we definitely want to give you the opportunity to press pause if you need to, go listen to a previous episode, or go take the time to head over to Paramount Plus and check out this week's episode, The Serene Squall, which is what we are going to be spoiling right now. So this is episode 7. You've been warned. The red alert has happened. So the official synopsis of this episode is as follows. While on a dangerous humanitarian mission, the crew of the USS Enterprise stumbles into a harrowing game of leverage with the quadrant's deadliest space pirate. Now, this episode was written by Bo DeMaio and Sarah Tarkoff and directed by Sidney Freeland. So I guess we'll just start kind of just general observations. Vactor, how does this episode stack in the season so far for you?
This one definitely was on the upper half of the season so far. I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of good back and forth between characters, and we talked about a little bit earlier in the season the love triangle almost between Nurse Chapel, Spock, and T'Pring had another incident happen, and that was interesting, enjoyable. The whole pirate ship thing, all of that stuff was fun, and a couple twists that happened in the episode. So I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, this episode.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I think it's definitely in the top half of episodes. I still feel like Memento Mori is the top episode so far this season. But we still have 3 more. Three more episodes of the season.
This finale has to be fantastic, Shoff. I have so much confidence in them. I think the last episode is going to be the best.
Yes, for sure. For sure. This episode started in a very weird way for me. T'Pring is not a crew member on the USS Enterprise, but she gets to have the log, the initial log of the episode, and that threw me. I didn't hate it, but I also didn't like it. And I think that's just because I'm kind of used to the logs being uttered by somebody on the ship, I don't know, like part of the crew and on the ship of the Enterprise or whatever ship they're for. Like, to me, it felt weird to be starting with a log of someone who's not part of the crew, and it's not even happening on the ship. So that to me threw me off, but I'm not going to be like obstinate and not willing to like budge on that. It definitely kind of struck me as odd. But then again, this show has really been playing a little bit fast and loose and opening up the reins a bit on who can do a log. Because it really, I mean, in the previous shows, there was only one log, and that's the captain. Like, there was no other, you weren't hearing the innermost thoughts of crew members and things like that. So this show is taking things in a new direction, and I didn't hate it. T'Pring, I didn't think was going to factor as heavily into this season as she has, but I don't hate that either because she's great. But we get to hear about her, and she's basically on she's like doing some work, humanitarian work, on this.
It's like a prison.
Yeah, it's like a prison. They're trying to rehabilitate Vulcans who have sort of turned their backs to removing emotion from their experience and their culture. And that doesn't really factor too heavily into the matters at hand until the way end, when it's really just there to serve a big reveal that happens at the end. And I don't know, should we just get right into that right away?
Yeah,
or should
let's
we
go, Shaw.
Okay, let's just knock out the reveal, and then we can focus more on like the overall plot of the episode.
Yeah.
Because the episode had some twists and turns, had some surprises, some betrayals, things like that. There was even a mutiny. It was fantastic. But the big reveal at the end is that there's a person specifically that's being held prisoner that T'Pring is potentially helping to try to rehabilitate. And it's none other than Spock's half-brother, Sybok, who we haven't seen in a live-action capacity for over 30 years on screen. So the first and only time that I'm aware of that we've seen Sybok before is in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, which is, in Star Trek, like, history of cinema, not considered to be one of the good ones. It is not well liked. It's the one that the famous Kirk quote, "Why does God need a starship?" And I'm probably butchering that, but or what does God need with a starship? But in the essence of that story, Sybok is sort of like a cult leader that has, and he's still a Vulcan in this as well, but he's sort of teaching people to face their worst pains, their worst fears and memories, to overcome them, so that they can join him on a trip where they basically hijack the Enterprise to take it to the center of the galactic barrier in order to find a planet that he believes to be heaven, where God lives. So it's a very interesting premise of a movie and very outside normal Trek. But it's also, if I'm not mistaken, this is a movie that William Shatner directed and may have written as well. So it's definitely unique in that regard. But so that's the first time we see Sybok. And now this episode, which takes place 10, maybe 15 years before the events of that movie, or maybe even more, actually. It's hard to really pinpoint years from the show to TOS to the movies. But definitely I would say at least 15 years till Spock is going to be encountering Sybok again and have that whole scenario happen. But we don't see Sybok from the front. We just see him from the back. So it's just a reveal. He's going under an alias, and I don't have that name in front of me at the moment. But he's apparently involved somehow, maybe romantically, maybe not, with the captain of the Serene Squall.
Right. Angel.
Yes, Captain Angel.
Yep.
So let's talk. Well, first of all, Vactor, I know that you are maybe a little bit fuzzy on Star Trek V.
Yes.
Would you like some more like history about Sybok? Would that help you?
Yeah, because obviously any connection to Spock is what we're interested in. So when they said, "Oh, it's Spock's half brother," that's when I was like, "What?" So yeah, I was like, I immediately text Shaw, "What is this? Who is this? What's going on?"
Yeah. So he is Spock's half brother. Basically, Sarek had a child with a Vulcan princess before I guess marrying Spock's mother and everything like that. Mm-hmm. So Sybok is older than Spock. In this show, I mean, we don't really see him from the front, so we don't know too much about him, but we do know that he's going under the pseudonym Zavarius, and he's full Vulcan, so it's not like a half thing like Spock, but he's chosen to allow himself the freedom to feel emotion, which is a forbidden state of being on Vulcan. Then he goes into exile, and so now he's a prisoner and trying to be like rehabilitated or things like that. But he's basically like a mental patient at this facility. But in the events of Star Trek V, he's a cult leader. He's using his Vulcan telepathic abilities to reach into the minds of people, and he's trying to have them confront really painful experiences. And so he's kind of looked at as a little bit of a messiah figure in that movie. And anybody who overcomes their pain, they sort of like pledge their lives to him. But he hijacks the Enterprise because he wants to find a place called Shakari, which is basically like Eden, like a galactic Eden, if there was. It's where God is supposed to apparently dwell. So, and also Captain Kirk, Bones, none of them at this point even knew that Spock had a half brother. So in this movie, they're shocked. They're like, what the heck? How do we not know this? So, so there's that aspect of things. Ultimately, they do get to this planet, but it's not God. It's an alien who has sort of been a little bit duplicitous and has deceived them all, or rather has deceived Sybok and all of his followers. And in order to save Spock and the rest of the crew, the Enterprise and things like that, he sacrifices himself. Sybok dies on this planet, and that's the last we saw of him at that point. So we kind of know his end game, but now we're getting to see him much earlier in his timeline. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Apparently he's 6 years older than Spock.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. And what's interesting is Michael Burnham of Discovery is also sort of like a sister to Spock, but not more in an adoptive sense.
Right.
So, but we've never seen like Michael Burnham and Spock and Sybok all in the same thing. So that's kind of a cool element to it as well. But anyways, that's a little background on Sybok. I thought that was a really cool reveal. I was really bummed because within hours of the episode going live on Paramount Plus, there was already an article that somebody had spoiled it right in the headline. Who is Sybok? And I'm like, why would they be asking this if it didn't matter to the episode? So right. I knew that he was going to be in it. And that I was like, oh man, I would have loved that to be a reveal. That would have been so cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, so let's switch gears. Let's talk about some other stuff. I want to hear your thoughts on Captain Angel, who is initially playing a different person. And now I'm blanking on that person's name, but her actress name is Jessie James Keitel, and she's a distant relative to Harvey Keitel. Little side note on that one.
Yeah.
But what did you think about her performance?
Yeah, I thought she did a great job disguising, playing that dual role and making you think one thing. And saw her on the Ready Room and then did a little bit of research and found out that she's non-binary, and that just goes into the Trek inclusivity that we talked about in our news section. So I thought that was great. The first time I've seen that. Maybe there's others in Discovery or something that I'm not familiar with, but first non-binary actor that I've seen in Trek. And yeah, I thought she did a great job, just like I said, playing that duality of the characters. And I didn't see that twist coming at all. I had no idea. So that was very interesting. And then at the end, her getting away, having that back door, having that plan of, okay, if something goes wrong, something goes sideways, I'm cutting ties, I'm leaving all the crew, I'm getting out of here. And I thought that key was kind of cool on her necklace. So all of those things,
totally.
Cool.
I want to make one note of things, and I don't want to bring this up because I'm like, this is something that I don't know how to put this, but I'll just say it before, and then I'll try to explain why I don't want this to make this a thing. But with everything going on with Star Wars right now, and we talked about it maybe last week, maybe it was a week before, but we were talking about all the hate that Moses Ingram, is that her name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Moses Ingram, who plays Reva on Obi-Wan Kenobi, is receiving, and that's simply because she's a black woman in Star Wars,
right?
Playing like a Sith Inquisitor,
mm-hmm.
And you would think that we, as people, as humans, we would have come a little further than to have people have so much hate and prejudice in their hearts towards other people, just
Right.
based on something as simple as race or even gender. But then, and I only bring this up because of that, Jesse James Keitel is a trans woman. But did you see any news articles this past week that were like people up in arms about her joining the cast or playing this character or anything? Like,
None.
I didn't see anything like
Yeah.
that. And I'm so glad we didn't. Like, it's not like I was looking for it, but I half expected there to be something, because
Right.
people just have an issue with anyone who is not a white hetero person. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of expecting there to be some Star Trek fans coming out of the woodwork upset, and maybe there were. And I'm not saying
I'm sure
that
there
she was
are, but-
totally immune to a barrage of stuff on social media, because there's any number of people out there. But there wasn't anything in the news that indicate that she was receiving like that level of hate, and I'm so glad.
Yeah.
So, and that's just another more proof that, I hate to say it, Star Trek fans are greater than Star Wars fans.
I love all Star fans. How about that? I'll put it that way. But yeah, I saw that also, Schaff. There was nothing mentioned, and I had to do a little bit of research just to even find out that she was non-binary, and I didn't see any articles, any headlines about it. On the Ready Room, they don't say, "Oh, you're a trans," or "You're, non-binary." So I thought that was very interesting. So the contrast of the Star Wars and the Star Trek, especially so close to each other. So yeah, hopefully this will be the standard going forward. It won't be an issue. It won't be something that they're calling out. It'll just be, this is an actor. This is an actor who's playing a part, and that's it. Like, there's nothing else behind it.
Yeah.
So
Which is great. And that's what Star Trek's all about, inclusivity.
Yes.
So, so that's fantastic. So I was really glad to see that.
yeah.
There was some further development in the Nurse Chapel Spock sort of will they won't they type thing, because you can definitely tell Nurse Chapel, I mean, she's a flirty person in general, and we kind of know a little bit more about that from the Ready Room. She talks about being a flirty character, but she definitely has some things going on for Spock, and that's even evident based on the end of the episode. Like, she's a little bit perturbed by the whole scenario, but she full on makes out with Spock to try to convince T'Pring of what's going on the Enterprise. And man, that was an interesting moment. Spock was getting in with his human side.
Yes. And even when he was explaining it to her at the end, when he was talking to T'Pring, it felt like she was okay. Everything was fine with her. But then on the Spock side is where I sensed some tension and some apprehension and some confusion. So that was also good, I think, playing into like you said, playing into his human side. It wasn't just, oh, okay, forget it. That was just all logic. There was nothing else to it. It was just a strategic move and nothing else. They did a good job of setting up this love triangle that we've talked about before with the flirting. And I want to see what happens because, and I said this before in a previous episode, I don't want to hate Spock. I don't want to dislike him, because if he is married, if he is with someone, like Nurse Chapel says, like, you're an honest guy, Spock, and you don't go after other women. So I was like, yeah, exactly. Don't do it, Spock. Don't fall to the dark side. So I don't want to dislike him, but also I find it interesting, and just the drama of a love triangles is any show or any story is going to be more dramatic with that tension between those two. So, or between those three, I should say. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I kind of want to see it, and I kind of don't want to see it.
I think that this show is doing a great job of sort of projecting out the outcome of this relationship between Spock and T'Pring, because they are not fated to stay together. within the first season of Star Trek original series, things don't work out between him and T'Pring. So I mean, we know it's not going to last, but right now, sorry to burst your bubble, but at least right now, like we're getting to see it when it's really good or when you're starting to see cracks in the walls. So that's cool. I forget what episode that was in. Maybe it was a muck time. I'm not 100% sure on that. Excuse me. But yeah, so we've got pirates, and they're like kind of a motley crew of alien species. Like it's not just like one type. It's not. They're definitely all humanoid, but there's like an Orion pirate who's kind of got. He's a heavier dude and big old bushy beard and everything. I liked him. He was fun.
Yeah,
he was the captain. He was the captain until he was the victim of a mutiny. So we don't know if he survived that. But we got to see a really comedic side to Captain Pike this episode.
Yes.
And that was so fun. He's the least stuffy captain of all of the Star Trek captains, in my opinion. Like he knows how to have fun as much as he knows how to commit to a mission and save the day and be the valiant hero and things like that. Like he's really the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to see just some more sides of him and the cooking aspect and having the whatever what was their race, the pirate race, the food that they made versus the human food. All of that stuff the comedic timing was fantastic. And it's just every episode, Shaw, every mission that we go on, if you haven't noticed it by now, listeners, every episode, every mission is going to be a love letter to Anson Mount. We just find new ways to love him more every episode. So our man crush on Anson Mount continues. Nothing
continues to grow.
Nothing changed this episode.
Oh man, we're gonna be in a severe Anson Mount drought after this season is done. We'll be like just chomping at the bit. We'll have to go rewatch season 1 just to get our fix.
Oh yeah.
I was trying to think of some other moments from the show. Oh, well, keeping with the theme of his comedy, there was a really great line, and I don't have it written out, but if we get a chance to, I'll try to throw it in here in this exact moment of the podcast.
Arg, me mateys. If we ever catch Angel, we should make them walk the plank, arg.
Please stop.
And if I don't, no worries. But the point, it happens about 44 minutes into the episode, and we're back on the bridge, and Pike is back, and number one and all of them are back, and Pike is doing like a pirate impression. he's like, next time we run into these scallywags, we'll make them walk the plank, and he's like just doing a whole thing, and having a bit with it, and you see number one, like she's trying to be very stoic, trying to be very serious, but you can see her starting to crack a little bit, but then she just says, please stop. She's like, it was a great moment. It actually like endeared me a little bit to number one, because this whole season, she's been my least favorite character. So it was just a good interaction between the two of them. It showed some chemistry. So I liked it.
Yes. Yep. Man, like I said, I just can't wait to see what the finale is on this, because I think this is starting down that path of whatever the finale is going to be, whether it's a cliffhanger or just a huge moment at the end. But the Sybok, yeah, the Sybok unveiling, I think is starting. It's like, all right, we got 3 episodes left. Let's set this up, and then he's going to come back at the end and be some type of an important, meaningful figure. So I'm just, at this point, I'm just thinking about, man, what are all the possibilities of what could happen for the remainder of the season? So I cannot be more excited Shuff.
Me too. I'm really thrilled. And I really do feel like they thread the needle so well on how to keep a show that is set in a time period after the events of Enterprise, before the events of the original series, and existed concurrent to season 2 of Discovery. Like there was a lot of stuff happening. Like they've really treaded some difficult waters of not like retconning stuff, of not messing with the canon of things. So
Right.
I'm looking forward to see what they continue to do. We haven't seen a whole lot of Samuel Kirk this season,
yes.
only like just a handful of times. So maybe we'll get more of him. Or maybe he was just brought in briefly because we know we're going to be getting Captain Kirk in season 2. So, and I know there's
Hey.
plans to bring in other crew members that we haven't seen yet, like Sulu, Chekhov, McCoy, Scotty.
I just thought about something, Shuff. Where was Uhura in this episode? Did she even appear?
That's a good question.
I don't
I mean, I
remember
would
her.
assume she would have been on the bridge, but she definitely wasn't part of the away mission.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I wonder where she was.
Did they show M'Benga either? That was another one.
No M'Benga, no Hemmer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I wonder what was going on in this
I don't
episode.
even. Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't recall. Yeah, so that's interesting. That is very interesting. This next episode, we saw a clip for on the Ready Room, and it looks like it's going to be focused on M'Benga in some capacity. The clip was really interesting. I'm not going to spoil anything about it, just to say that it very much had me confused, and I'm in a good way. I'm like, what is going on the bridge of the Enterprise? I cannot wait till next week.
I also want to see, because we have not gotten the backstory or the episode of M'Benga. I mean, I'm sorry, Ortega. Sorry.
What is Erica Ortegas? Yeah.
Yeah. What is her backstory? What is her episode?
Maybe even though M'Benga's the feature here, we've gotten more about him. Maybe we'll get more about her because she has a moment where she, in the clip, gets injured. So maybe that, with her being a focus of the injury, maybe that'll be a bigger thing too.
Ooh,
so,
yeah.
Any final thoughts on the episode, Vactor?
No, just like I said, another great notch in the belt of this season 1. Can't wait for season 2 and the remainder of what's going to happen here. I'm continuing to love Strange New Worlds. One of my highlights of my week.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with you on that. Now, as per usual, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the episode at this point, but we also want to spend a little bit of time doing some life updates. I want to hear from Vactor first. From my life update, I've got a couple things to share, but the focus is going to be commenting on something that happened within our podcast fleet on a different ship of the podcast fleet on the Sandbox Gamers. But before we get to that, I just want to tease that. But before we get to it, Vactor, how's your week been?
So far, so good, Shaw. Very busy, a lot of things going on. Not only am I into this Star Trek world, but I'm also into Star Wars. And Obi-Wan had its penultimate episode this week, and it was fantastic, Shaw. The finale in that series is shaping up to be something special. And Miss Marvel just got going on Disney Plus, so I'm also a huge Marvel guy. So those are my other highlights besides Strange New Worlds. The Disney Plus highlights on Wednesday are really keeping me going each week. And then on top of that, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, Shredder's Revenge. I'm a big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan, so I've been looking forward to that game ever since I heard about it, ever since I found out that it was a thing, and it has been released. I picked it up on 2 different consoles or 2 different platforms, on Xbox and on Nintendo Switch, and I played a little bit of it. Love it. Right now, Shaw, it is my game of the year. It is my favorite game of the year. But you and I are going to get a chance to play some co-op tomorrow, and then I'll talk about it on Sandbox Gamers next week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, we were just figuring out in our group chat who was going to play which turtle. So it's good that we got that out of the way now, because that could have created some serious tension on the selection screen. People with fast fingers trying to choose their characters before another person has a chance to.
I call dibs on Michelangelo. He's always been my favorite turtle, Shaw.
You know, if it were just you and me playing, that would be a tough one because I love Mikey too. But I would let you have him because that's the kind of friend I am.
Yeah, Shaw.
But I'm going to end up with Leo. I'm going to end up with Leo because that's what losers get.
We could switch off, Shaw.
So I'm looking forward to that as well. You're right. There's so many great fandoms happening all at one time right now.
Yes.
So it does produce a little bit of a challenge as a working dad and attentive husband to find time for all of these shows, but so great. It's a good problem to have because the alternative of just having a drought of great geeky content, like that sucks. I'd rather have too much and have to try to find time for it than not have any at all. So I'm going to be a happy geek, not an unsatisfied geek out there. So
yeah.
Now, my week, very similar to Vactor in terms of the types of content been enjoying on TV and things like that. Been playing some Fortnite. Got a chance to play Fortnite with Vactor a little bit ago. I played briefly this morning during like a morning break. I just needed to decompress and kind of step away from my computer. So I played a little bit of Fortnite. Got some more quests done. It's been a great season so far. I'm really enjoying that. Just vibing, just vibing Vactor just for the summer.
Yeah.
I was attempting to unlock the Fortnite Spider-Man stuff from the recent Fortnite Marvel comic crossover.
Yes.
But I was having difficulties logging into Epic Games' portal on their website, so I had like a problem with that last night. I'll try it again later. But so I was trying to work on that. But the big news for me this week is we've been actively searching for many months and many weeks leading up to our upcoming move to Western Washington. And we successfully landed a rental house this week, one that we poured ourselves into hoping we would get because it's very much like the dream home that we are looking for.
Yeah.
And we went as far as like, obviously most people, you have to put in an application, right? But most people don't then send pictures of their family and write a letter to the homeowners as well. We did that.
Nice.
We did that. That's how badly we wanted this house. So we were very fortunate enough to get it. So we're in the process of signing the lease agreement right now. And then I just have to mail off the cashier's check and everything like that. So so it's pretty much a done deal. I don't think there's anything that would cause it to not happen. So I feel like we're pretty much set on it. And that's great because that's been a really big challenge. The housing market is nuts. And especially, I mean, I don't know how it is everywhere else, but because we're attempting to move to Western Washington, these houses are on the market for rental and within a 2-day time period are gone.
Yeah.
They are picked up, scooped up that fast. They don't even have time to schedule tours. These people are taking houses unseen, sometimes with like less than 5 photos on the site. Thankfully, this particular one, even though we're not going to get a chance to tour it before we move into it, we got like 25 pictures or something. So like we know what it looks like. We got a good understanding of that. So super excited about that.
Congratulations.
And, thank you. That's a huge win for us. And from the house we're in now that we're not super happy about, we're really excited to be in a place that we really wanted to be in, and it just feels right. So loving that. I'm going to switch gears now, Vactor, because I teased something that happened within our podcast fleet on the USS Sandbox Gamers. And, Vactor, set the stage for us. From week to week, Vactor chooses topics to start out the episodes of Sandbox Gamers, our video game podcast, to sort of get to know the hosts, get to know their interests, preferences, things like that. And this week's question, I feel like Vactor chose it because he knew that I would have very strong feelings about it. And I'm not even on that podcast. I'm not a co-host on that show. And so he knew I would listen to it. and that I would go bananas. So, what question was that, Vector? What question did you decide?
Well, the very innocent question that I asked this week to get to know all of the hosts on the Sandbox Gamers podcast, and had no weight or history to it at all, just a random question out of the blue, was, King Kong and Godzilla had a movie this last year where they fought each other, and I just wanted to know, who would win? Who would you think would win? That was my question to our Sandbox Gamer panel. And so that was it. That was the end of it, y'all.
Keep in mind, for our fellow listeners out there that maybe didn't know us back during Geek So to Speak when this was going on, but one of the co-hosts of Sandbox Gamers, Wonder Rob, it was my original co-host on Geek So to Speak. And this was before Vactor joined up with Geek So to Speak as well. And we made a bet. We said, when we knew this movie was coming out, we made a bet. And we said, based on Godzilla versus Kong, who would win in a fight? And based on the events of this movie, that would determine, whose side. And I chose Godzilla. I was saying, in this movie, when Godzilla faces Kong, it's going to be Godzilla by the end of their fight. And Wonder Rob did not feel the same way. He thought that it wasn't going to be, he said it wasn't going to be Godzilla. It wasn't going to be King Kong. And he was saying that it was going to be a situation where there would be a draw, and then they would team up and fight something else, which did happen. I want to make it clear. I'm not contesting that the two characters, Godzilla and Kong, that they did not end up teaming up at the end of this movie. But I want to make it very, very clear that if you listen to Sandbox Gamers, Wonder Rob is pretty heavy-handed in how he's describing it to make him the clear victor of this bet. Because technically speaking, and as the records show, I won the bet because Godzilla did in fact win against Kong. And I want to make it clear why I know this and why this is true. And also I recognize that our podcast is a kid-friendly, family-friendly podcast. So I will not be resorting to colorful language. I will be resorting to even colorful language to avoid using colorful language. But more or less, here's how I know that Godzilla won. And let me explain something here that is clearly getting missed every single time that this comes up. Is that I am not in disagreement that by the end of the movie, Godzilla and Kong team up and fight Mechagodzilla. Spoiler alert. That is not up for debate. That is understood. I saw the movie. We all saw it. We know, and if you saw it, you know that. That's what happens. I'm talking about, and my bet, the way I phrased my bet and the way I wanted the bet to go is strictly the fights between Godzilla and Kong. I didn't care about what happened at the end of the movie. I had a feeling they would team up as well. But there doesn't have to be, like, think of it in pro wrestling, right? When two characters face off against each other, one person pins the other, gets the 3 count and wins. He doesn't have to kill the opponent to win the match, right? Like you don't have to end their life to be the winner in a this person versus this person situation. So the same rules apply, in my opinion, to Godzilla versus Kong. I wasn't looking for one to end the other. These are two massive film properties. They weren't going to kill each other, all right? That wasn't going to happen. But what was going to happen was I believed there was going to be a clear victor of the matches between them. And by the near end of the movie, before the team up happens, there is one final duel between Godzilla and Kong where they hash it out in the streets of, I want to say, Seoul, Korea. I think, I can't remember exactly. But by the end of it, Godzilla is literally stepping on Kong's chest screaming, roaring in his face. Kong roars back. Godzilla roars back again, and Kong submits. He can't even get up. He tries to get up, and he falls back down. His heart is pretty much almost like he's almost dead, and he's almost unconscious pretty much. And if not for the intervention of humans using their little like ships to basically act as like paddles to like jumpstart his heart, Kong would have been dead lying there. But it didn't even matter if he did or did not die. He submitted to Godzilla. He did not get back up. Godzilla was standing. Kong was laying down. He did not get back up. That means that Godzilla won the fight. And that's all I was trying to say in my bet, was that Godzilla would beat Kong in a battle between the two of them. I never said anything in my bet about what would happen after that. That wasn't part of it. I didn't care about that. So for anyone who is confused, Wonder Rob, Vactor, I won the bet fair and square because I bet that Godzilla would win against Kong, and that's exactly what happened. And you can consult the internet and you can ask who won in the final duel between Godzilla and King Kong, and you will see unanimously that it was Godzilla. After Kong gets resuscitated and then they team up to fight Mechagodzilla and then they go their separate ways, that's not part of the bet. That was never part of the bet. So I blame Wonder Rob for not just choosing one or the other and complicating the bet, because that's honestly where this goes sour and goes south, is because if he had just said, I think no one's going to win, then he still would have lost. By saying, I think no one's going to win and they're going to team up at the end, that's a different thing. Those are two different bets. It's a bet between who's going to win in a fight between these two characters. Right?
Yeah.
I know I'm not going to convince Vactor, because Vactor truly believes that nobody won that fight. But I know this, that if Vactor and I were in the ring right now and I straight up pinned him and the referee did the count, or if I punched him and TKO'd him and he's lying flat and I'm standing, guess what? I win that match. That's how it goes. That is how a 1v1 situation happens. So I hope I've cleared that up.
Well, I do notice that Schaff has edited the Wikipedia entry for Godzilla versus Kong, because it says right here, and this is typical Schaff speak, Kong initially gains the upper hand. However, Godzilla emerges victorious after incapacitating Kong. So Schaff clearly added the however after this. I think that it's clear.
That is utter bull. That is baloney.
Well, now we know more about Schaff. So this is great. My question has, it's just, there's the flower petals have emerged and it's just spewing lovely fragrances all over our fleet, Schaff. Everyone is showing their true colors, and we get to know everyone a little bit better. So I like this. I like it a lot.
All right. Well, as much as I love being mentioned on Sandbox Gamers, let's let it be for good things, not for Godzilla versus Kong controversies that are absolutely asinine and make me seethe with rage over how incorrect they are.
We will definitely be mentioning you on this next episode because, like I said, we're going to be playing the Turtles game co-op tomorrow. So we will be mentioning Schaff in a positive light.
Okay. But quick shout out to our fellow podcast in the fleet, Sandbox Gamers. If you haven't had a chance to check out, is it level 17? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, level 17 is this week's episode, and they were talking about the most recent video game showcase that happened. Was that the State of Play?
So there was not the State of Play. That's Sony's specific.
Oh,
there
that's
was the Xbox Bethesda, and then also there was so the video game awards are done every year by Jeff Keighley. This was another called the Summer Games Fest, also done by Jeff Keighley. So
Gotcha.
It's kind of like replacing E3.
Yeah, E3 is definitely a distant memory for all of us. So check out that episode. It was really great. I'm not 100% full through it yet, but I was listening on my way to and from picking up dinner tonight, and it was great. So
thank you.
So shout out to them, and also shout out to We Love Comics, which brings me my comic book fix every single week.
Yeah.
And a quick shout out to Vactor, who's been slowly building his Reels and TikTok videos in relation to his comic book knowledge. And so we thank him for sharing that wealth of information, every single week.
Thank you. Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, just my last name, Vactor, Vactor, or on YouTube, and just search for Vactor. And then also on TikTok, it's Vactor Loves Comics. So I'm trying to post on those three platforms at least 5 times a week, if not 7. But it's just kind of whenever an idea strikes me. So hopefully I can talk about some Trek comics coming up here shortly.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to start working on other ways we can reach you in the next few months. Because of my move, I'm kind of focusing my attention on that. But once I'm settled in the new place, we'll start getting that stuff kicked off. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast episode today. We really appreciate you. Hope that you're enjoying not only TREKnological, but we really hope you're enjoying Star Trek Strange New Worlds, because we certainly are. If you're looking to find us on social media, this is where we'll post our blasts about this episode is live and things like that. Sometimes we got memes going too. That would be at TREKnopod, TREKNOPOD on Instagram and Twitter. We are part of the Geek So to Speak podcast network. And if you have any want to know more information about that, then you can check out geeksotospeak.com/network, and that'll bring you to the page with all of our shows. Great way to check it out. Please subscribe to our show. It really helps us out. We're trying to grow. We're trying to get more and more listeners and more engagement from our listeners. So when you do subscribe, don't forget to leave us a review if your podcast platform allows it. We know there's an option to do that on Apple Podcasts. There's a way to rate us on Spotify. And then if you're listening to us on something else, you can still always reach out to us through social media. We would love that too. So there's plenty of ways to reach us, and we really want that engagement. So if you've been on the fence, you're like, oh, I'm really enjoying this, but I'm just not the type to reach out. Do it. Get out of your comfort zone. Let us know what you think, because that's how we continue to grow, is with feedback, and that's what we like. Yeah. So we want to be the best version of the podcast that we can for you, but we can't do it unless you help us. So
yeah, Shoff, I think we found our Spotify question, and I think it's who would win between Kong and Godzilla. I think that's what it is.
Kong versus Godzilla versus Khan versus Shinzon.
Yeah.
Versus, you know what? Maybe okay. Maybe instead of the Godzilla versus Kong, maybe it'll be what's the best Star Trek villain of all time. Keep it open-ended.
I like it.
Okay. Now we also know Star Trek is something that usually is an inherited thing. Maybe you pass down from another family member or friend. So we would encourage you to do the same with our podcast. Share it with somebody you know. If you're having a good time, let that person have a good time too. So we would appreciate that. Next week, we're going to continue our ongoing recap and our review of Star Trek Strange New Worlds with episode 8 of the 10-episode season. We got 3 more episodes of the season, and just enjoying every bit of it. So thank you for sticking with us. With that, Vactor, I believe our mission of the week is complete. Shoff and Vactor here. 2 to beam up.
I live long and prosper.